welcome to another episode of the Biz Coach Show. We're hanging out with our host, Eric T. Whitmoyer, founder and CEO of My Biz Coaches. Eric, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, David. Thank you.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. And we have a special guest today, Matt. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you as well.
Awesome. Well, it is great to have you on the show, and I'm excited for our topic today, which is from setback to success, and excited to learn more about your story and your business, which is CapForge. And I think let's actually start there. Do you mind just kind of giving us a little bit of your background and kind of what you do today? I think that'll help our audience kind of understand where we're going with today's episode.
Yeah, definitely. So CapForge is bookkeeping, accounting, and tax for small business owners. I started it in the spare bedroom 12 years ago by myself, doing all functions. And now we're up to 85 folks. We've got clients in all 50 states. And, we're continuing to grow at a great pace, but it's been a journey, right? It did not happen overnight success in 12 years in the making so far. So lots of lessons learned along the way, good and bad, challenges and wins. So I think typical of any entrepreneur's kind of journey, right? It's never a straight line. It's all the zigs and zags that you take along the way to get where you are.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I love that. And I'm excited to explore that with you a bit more today. And I think everything that we're going to talk about probably applies to small business owners, entrepreneurs. We're going to look at it more from the lens of kind of business coaches and what they can learn from your story and your success. But I think, even if you're not a business coach and you're watching this, there's going to be some nuggets that you can take away as well. Well, before we dive into that, Eric, maybe tell us a bit about how you and Matt got connected.
Yeah, so as you know, constantly networking, and one of the individuals I met, his name is Alex. It was through H7. It was actually through another connection at H7. Ironically, as I think through that whole development. But Alex was introduced to me because he does acquisitions. And as you know, David, we work with clients. We're looking to maybe acquire in a business or exit a business. And so being in both sides of that space, as a coach, we'll consult people on, how to prepare for the right type of business and what that experience should look like, and some of the components that go into that, and to a lesser degree, some of the financial components, maybe doing some analysis of the financials. And so Alex, in that conversation, mentioned I should meet Matt because that's a lot of what they do. And so taking that into consideration, I was like, well, let's meet Matt then, because that sounds like a great combination. And with my background in accounting, I'm always intrigued to talk to somebody who's knee deep in that work on a regular basis. So I felt like it was a really good conversation. Obviously, a lot of comparable discussions around frustrations and directional coaching and guidance that we provide our clients. And so it became like I said, really kind of evolved. And I said, well, you know what, Matt, we need to have you on the show.
Absolutely. And here we are, which is awesome.
Here I am.
Perfect. Well, before we go all the way back to the early days of CapForge, and I want to unpack that a little bit, maybe tell us about kind of what you're doing now and maybe some of the businesses that you serve.
Yeah. So, to exactly what Eric just mentioned and our connection with Alex, a lot of what we do now is work with both clients who are thinking about selling their business and getting it really in shape to where they can exit for maximum value with minimum headache during the due diligence process, right? Because all the buyers always want to go through and uncover every little nook and cranny in the business to make sure that it's what they're expecting and that everything is going to be successful for them moving forward. So we want to make sure on the other side that everything has been covered, everything is as good as we can possibly get it to present. And then we also do a fair amount of work with buyers who are looking to acquire a business, doing that uncovering of all the stuff in the nooks and crannies to make sure that the buyer understands exactly what they're getting. There hasn't been anything that the seller's business, hasn't disclosed or didn't do as accurately as they could have, or, you just don't want any surprises when you're spending 6 or 7 or 8 figures to acquire a business and then find out that, it's just not what we thought. It doesn't work the way we expected. It doesn't generate the kind of cash flow that we would really need to be able to finance, or pay off the financing that we're using to buy this thing. So we worked on both sides of that equation from an accounting standpoint, but, accounting always bleeds over into bigger questions about marketing and positioning and operations and HR and things. So that's why I was really excited to talk to Eric, because those are the kind of topics that he deals with directly. And then finance is sort of a side, and whereas we're finance first, but all those other things on the side. So there's a good amount of overlap in the kind of conversations we have, and we were able to, share some anecdotes and commiserate on some of the good and the bad that you see in this world. But that's kind of one of the big things we've been doing is working with small business owners on their accounting, but more specifically, a lot of times with people who are either planning to sell or people who are working on an acquisition.
Awesome. Thanks for walking us through that. I'm sure Eric is very excited. He loves, balance sheets and cash flow statements and all that fun stuff. So I'm sure he'd love to learn even more about the day-to-day, which is great. So thanks for that overview. As we look at our topic today, from setback to success, I'd love to start maybe at the beginning of CapForge and look at maybe for coaches that are transitioning into coaching because of a setback or job loss or something like that. How can they use that setback as a launching pad for maybe the next step in their business journey?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly how I got started. I had gone to an MBA program and had an emphasis in entrepreneurship in my studies, but I really didn't even by the time I graduated, I didn't really know what that was going to look like, how I would transition that desire to be an entrepreneur into the actual facts. So I took the easy route. I got a job working at a firm that did consulting, and I was working as a consultant for small businesses that needed help with the business plan. They needed help with financial projections and things like that. At that time, the consulting firm that I had worked with, this was back in 2000, back when a lot of people were attaching .com to the end of whatever their name was and getting a whole bunch of investor money with the idea that, they'd scale to the moon. That didn't pan out. And as they cut back, I was one of the people who was let go. And what I thought to myself at the time was, I enjoyed working with these clients. There was a ton of them out there. But yet a lot of them either couldn't afford or would have been happy to have an alternative to kind of the nosebleed rates that the consulting firm wanted to charge for what I was, basically doing and delivering myself. So I thought, let me take this opportunity. I've got some savings in the bank. It was, September at that point. I said, let me give myself to the end of the year, see if I can go find a couple of clients on my own and deliver basically the same services I'd been delivering as an employee, but on my own. If it works, cool. If it doesn't, all right, I'll go look for, I'll go get a real job, right? That was 24 years ago. Still haven't gotten a real job. But it was, I think it was the easiest transition it could have been, because I think a lot of people, when they're trying to go out on their own, you think what's called imposter syndrome, right? You feel like, who am I to be telling this person how to do something, how to, achieve success, or whatever the goal is that you're coaching them on. If I haven't done it myself, if I'm not really an expert in the area. So the transition was easy for me in the sense that I'd already been doing what I was now going to be doing independently. So I felt at least confident in that. I still felt like, how are they going to figure out I just live in a 2-bedroom apartment and I just printed these business cards at Kinko's? Like, I don't really have, I'm not really a consultant, but I am but I knew I could deliver value. I knew I could help them in a way that they needed help. And I knew that the rate I was charging for what I was delivering was fair. So I had that, internal monologue as I'd go and talk to these folks, and, they were, yes, that sounds good. Yes, that's what we're looking for. Yes, that price seems fair for what you're delivering. And I signed up some clients, and, as soon as I had 2 or 3 going, I was hooked. I was like, I'm never going back to work for someone else. This is really the path I was meant to be on. And then over the course of the next 12 years, before I started the accounting, I dabbled in some other things. I bought a business. I worked as a business broker. I launched some software, and had some success there. And I launched some other things that I didn't have much success with. But I really kind of learned in the early days that I could do it successfully on my own. I could be an entrepreneur successfully. And with some successes, even small successes, comes confidence and the ability to keep pushing forward, and the ability to keep saying, even if this didn't work, I know I can make it work and I can keep moving forward. And I never really looked back. I never really ever seriously entertained the idea of getting a job again, even in, during the lulls in between selling one business and before starting the next. it just never it occurred to me again to kind of do it. So I think I had an easy even though I was laid off, and, you could have looked at that as like, that's pretty upsetting and could be sort of, hurts your self-identity as I'm somebody with a job. And now all of a sudden I'm somebody that's unemployed.
Right.
That can be rough, but I knew that there was still people out there that needed what I could do. I knew I could deliver it. I just had to get over the fear of sort of putting myself out there, making the pitch and seeing what happened. And fortunately, I was able to do that. And like I said, just with a few successes, that's a huge confidence builder. And after that, even after I had a couple pitches that didn't land and a couple of, things that didn't work out, I was like, that's okay. I know I can do it. I just keep firing away, and you're going to hit the target sooner or later. And that really launched me on this 24-year journey of being an entrepreneur.
Matt, I love that. That's awesome. And I think inspiring, right? Because you have people that are going through maybe a low that might hear that and think, you know what, hey, I can do this. And I think that's an important thing for them to hear and to think about. And Eric, I'd love to get your perspective on that, because I know that you work with new coaches, all the time at My Biz Coaches, and kind of that inner dialogue or that inner monologue that Matt's talking about, maybe the imposter syndrome. How do you address that with new coaches, and maybe advice that you'd have for somebody that's looking to make that transition?
You mean, how do I coach myself on that same problem?
I did not say that, Eric.
No, it's funny. I think that the irony of that question is I think that unless you've experienced it yourself, you really can't coach to somebody else the challenge that you go through in that regard, right? Because David, my career, right? I mean, we were together for at least 12 of my 20 some odd years in the wireless industry, and you saw my growth and development through those years as well. Yep. In the role that I played, and the number of people that I coached and developed over those years, both personally and professionally. And so the irony is that when I started business coaching, I didn't see it any differently. As a matter of fact, like Matt, I did not feel like I was out of my element. I totally was like, I've been doing this for a while now. I've been starting up businesses. I've been helping companies grow. I've been managing people. This is simple. And it wasn't until I started listening to some of the others that are out there that were talking about it. And I don't know, pundits, I will call them, that were out there saying, oh yeah, if you're dealing with, and I'm like, am I dealing with that? and it made me think about it. I'm like, am I dealing with it? And that it hit me in a rut where I hadn't signed up a few clients for a while. I hadn't signed up any clients for a few months. And I was like, am I going through this? I was like, but so I think that the irony is that I think that everybody to some degree goes through that. And to Matt's point, I think there's a lot in the when you're doing something that you're very confident in, and you get those wins under your belt, it really kind of helps you push through that. And so, even myself early on, and I think partially mine was just coming out of COVID, because my growth was through networking. And during COVID, that was pretty much non-existent. So then all of a sudden I had to pivot into this whole, Zoom calls and having sales calls on Zoom. And that was an adjustment period. And that was definitely part of that I struggled through for a period of time. But so as you to your question, as I work through that with others, is that, helping identify what is it that you do for your client? And then more specifically, what do you know you're good at? No matter what do you know you're good at? And let's focus on that. Because the only reason you feel like you're having imposter syndrome is because you're speaking to something that you're not familiar with. That's the only time you actually feel like you're having imposter syndrome, is when you're dealing with something you're not familiar with. When you try and do something you're not familiar with, that's why you feel that way. If you're doing something that's second nature to you, you never feel like you're an imposter. And I think that that's where that was actually part of how My Biz Coaches evolved, right? It was like, I realized, even though I have a background in accounting and I understand finance, there's a threshold that I don't cross, right? I know I go to a certain point, I can help analyze books, I can help analyze their numbers, I can look at their P&Ls and all that kind of stuff and do some projections. But there's a point where I'm like, okay, we really need somebody else to vet these numbers. Let's bring somebody else in. And it was the same thing with whether it was, buying insurance, or, should we be an LLC or a corporation, or, what are some of these other conversations to the new businesses. And as coaches came in, it would be the same thing. They're like, well, I don't understand that stuff. And I said, you don't have to. You have partners that you can partner with, and they're the specialists in those categories. Don't try and be all things to all people, because that will set you up to fail.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the primary thing, is help them stay focused on what they're really confident in. And you've heard me gripe about this many times on the show. If you're a life coach that works with business owners, then call yourself a life coach that works with business owners, not a business coach. Because unless you know the nuances and the day-to-day of running a business with employees and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in revenue and all the things that come with that, then you're not really a business coach. You can life coach business owners. That's fine. Just don't call yourself a business coach, because it's disingenuous to those who really focus on that category. Because then the people get a experience and they're like, well, I was looking for this and I didn't get that. And again, that comes back to that whole point. You're coaching something you don't really know or aren't familiar with. And hence you have the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate the insight on that, Eric. I think, Matt, as we kind of walk through your journey a little further, I'm thinking about, starting just the one-man show. You kind of have that core service that you were offering. And then over time, I imagine you kind of grew that service lineup to include more things. And I'm kind of curious how you approach that, because that's something that a lot of business owners and a lot of coaches really struggle with, is how and when do I start to add more services and maybe branch out into some new areas? And so how did you navigate that as you were scaling your business?
Right. Well, I think one of the key things was I went into it with the idea from day one that I wanted to be a big firm. I was not looking to just try to fill my own time with bookkeeping work. I really wanted to create an accounting firm, but we were starting from zero, right? So in the early days, you do everything, right? I was sales, I was HR, I was bookkeeping, I was the janitor, I did everything. But knowing that what I was best at, my best role, especially in the earliest days, was going out and acquiring new clients. So my mindset from day one was, I'm going to go acquire as many clients as I can. I will service them. But the minute I have enough cash flow to bring on employee number one, the first person I'm going to bring on is somebody who can do the bookkeeping. I will hand off, all the bookkeeping to that person, and I will continue to generate new clients, new business. And then once we need a second bookkeeper and a third and so on, I will continue to delegate that work out. And then, over time, now with 85 people, we have multiple different departments and, layers of management and things, but it all evolved one at a time. But because I went in with the mindset of, I'm not just trying to earn enough to pay some bills or even earn enough to have a comfortable living, which, I could have stopped a long time ago if that was just the goal of, I'm just to have a nice, comfortable 6-figure income and that's it. But my goal really was to see, if we could take over the world, or short of that, at least have a good sized national firm, right? So I went in with that mindset. So I knew that I wanted to delegate. And then with that in mind, I knew I was going to have to kind of come up with procedures. I was going to have to come up with, an organization system that would allow me to sort of, okay, I'm handing these projects off to you, but now it's just you and me. And I want to make sure that you're doing enough work every day that, we're going to be able to meet deadlines. We're going to meet client expectations. And when I go out and continue to sell this stuff, I can with confidence say we'll be accurate, we'll be timely, we'll be, able to deliver it in a profitable for us and a valuable for you as the client, price point and so on. So I really went in with the mindset of building out an organization, not just filling my own time. But maintaining the quality, maintaining margins, maintaining, customer service levels that I felt like were really required to be able to sell at the highest level and meet client expectations and build through referrals and word of mouth, because we were doing a great job. So I think, if you go in with that idea, it's easier because you already know that you've got to lay out systems and processes and procedures and build an organization, not just, cash checks yourself and pay your own bills and kind of just be a one-man shop, and then figure out, if I wanted to hire somebody, gosh, what would that look like? Who would I hire? What would they do? So I was just ahead of the game, I think, in starting down the path from day one with the mindset of planning to be big.
I love that big vision, and I think that's powerful. I mean, clearly that's something that having that, end picture in mind helped you scale efficiently and have all the right things in place. I'm curious though. I know there's a lot of, whether they're coaches or, business owners that as they go through similar phases, one of two things happen. Either they're concerned about losing control by bringing people in and now they're handing off work and those sorts of things, or they don't think about it and then they find out that they've lost control of their business because they didn't handle it right. So how did you kind of navigate that? What did that look like for you?
Well, I was fortunate in that very early in my career, even in college and right after college, before I went to the MBA program, I worked in restaurants and I had some really good mentors as managers. I was managing restaurants, but I had some really good mentors who really helped me become a good manager. And that's not a skill that you just pick up, right? That really takes practice, exposure, seeing good, seeing bad, seeing real life results, right? Nobody's teaching that in school. You're not picking that up. It doesn't come naturally, I don't think, to anybody. So I had the benefit of having the experience of being a manager in the past. So that part, I felt like I had a good handle on it. And really, when you boil it down, it's pretty straightforward, right? Treat people well, right? Show appreciation for a job well done, set clear expectations, hold people accountable. I think what a lot of people do is they go, oh God, I'm overwhelmed, right? I've got 60 hours a week of work, so I'm just going to hire somebody that'll help. And then they hire them and they don't tell them what to do. And then, they're like, well, it's Friday. What have you done? You haven't helped me at all. Like, you didn't tell me what to do. You didn't give me any direction. You didn't give me, well, I'm too busy for that. Okay, that's a fail on the owner part, not on the employee part. So again, I kind of went into it thinking ahead of, here's the job description, here's the procedures, here's what I want to be able to hand off, here's what so if I give you this project, then I'm going to review it. And this is what I would like to see when I review it. I want to see the books are reconciled. I want to see the P&L make sense. You reviewed it. You look for this, you look for that. Everything is saved in these drops, right? So now I've given them a clear set of expectations and training where needed on how to do it. And then I set them free to do it. And then I check. And I go, okay, well, here's the checklist I asked you to go through. And it looks like 6 of the 8 things, you did right. This one needs a little work and this one needs quite a bit of work. So let's talk about, right? And then I could hold them accountable and they knew what I wanted. They knew what success looked like in my eyes. And I knew what success looked like in what I had told them it should be. So that way it's super clear. And if then when they're done and they've done everything I asked and I'm not happy with the output, again, that's on me, right? So I think a lot of times when there's a disconnect there or a failure, or people feel like, oh, I tried to delegate and it didn't work. Well, how clearly did you delegate? How effectively did you lay out exactly what you wanted? And if the answer is very clearly, then maybe you didn't do that right. Or if the answer is I hardly gave them any direction at all, well, then why would you be surprised you didn't get what you had, the vision you had in your mind, right? So I think for anybody that's looking to grow and have employees and be able to delegate and hand things off, if you want that to go well, you have to put in the front end work for that outcome to be what you're expecting. You have to be clear on your expectations and then you measure against that. And if you don't feel like you have the time to do that, then you probably don't have the time to hire, right? You've got to step back and do that first, and then you can bring somebody on and then you can be successful. And I think, there are people out there who go, well, nobody can do it as well as I can. Well, that might be true, but is that the level that the client is looking for, right? The client might have a level of success that's not the same as if you did it perfectly. They're looking for whatever they put value on. And if you can train someone else to deliver that, then even if that person doesn't do it as well as you do, that doesn't mean you're trapped. I can never have a business bigger than me because I'm the only one. Well, chances are you're not that amazing, right? You could come up with some training, figure it out, figure what the client wants, and then meet that, right? Otherwise, nobody would ever have a business that's bigger than themselves. Right? So it is possible, but you have to put in the front end work. And I think that's where a lot of people, they just don't understand or appreciate that needs to happen first. If they do that, they'll be much more successful. If they don't do that, they're going to struggle. And then you're going to be one of those people who go, oh, there's no good people to hire. All these employees are lazy. They're all, they don't try. They don't want to do a good job. Well, when I hear people say that, I think you screwed up, not them. Yes, you can occasionally get a bad employee, but again, it's super easy, right? Here's the checklist. You did 1 out of the 8 things right. I trained you again. Now you did 0 out of the 8 things right. It's not a fit, right? You're out. We'll bring in the next person. But at least it's an objective decision. It's not, oh, I just didn't like them or I thought they were lazy or whatever.
Right. So David, he touched on a couple of your. I saw you twitching in your seat there.
I got excited. That was like a master class on delegation. So I hope people took notes. It's something I'm passionate about. And man, what a great example. That was awesome.
Yeah, I was going to add and Matt, to your point, it is. I think I know, and David and I know, and we've had this conversation on the show before. Is the emotional intelligence that comes, it's so important to be able to read and understand people. And when you have that skill set and you can, to your point, recognize the fact that, hey, maybe I dropped the ball on how to communicate that, right? That's where, and I've had a phrase, David's heard me say this for at least the last 15 years, maybe longer. I don't remember, but it's actually been longer than 15 years, probably closer to 20 now, but attitude's a reflection of leadership.
Yep.
Right. If somebody's failing on the front line, it's often because leadership has not done an effective job of what the expectations are, what the expectations should look like, right? Whatever. Right. So it's 100% that. And I think that you to your point, you mentioned that you were a restaurant manager. I did restaurant management. I did retail management. David did retail management. I would say that if you want to be successful as an entrepreneur, you should do something like that, some kind of leadership role in a high energy, high turnover environment like that, because it trains you to think and strategize the way that you're going to lead people and consciously think about that, because it'll pay you major dividends as an entrepreneur. Because that's by far and away the biggest gap that I see that you were able to make that many business owners struggle with, which is, how do I delegate? How do I get things done through others? Now, one of the things you didn't touch on, Matt, that I want to kind of touch on, knowing that your background's in accounting as it relates to that, is when you've made the financial decision, because that's often a conversation I have with clients. I need to figure out how to, like, I'm bringing in just enough revenue to pay my bills to eat, but I know I've got opportunity to grow. I am afraid to make the leap, right? I got to bring in the payroll, but I may go some period of time. Let's say it's 30 days, 90 days, something like that, where there's going to either I'm taking less, or I got to borrow money, or I've got to do something to fill that gap in the short term to offset that second salary and payroll taxes and all that fun stuff that comes along with that, to be able to bridge that gap. Do you have any thoughts or feedback or anybody you would share in that regard?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're trying to make that jump from 1 to 2, what you have to really have confidence in is your lead generation, your marketing, and your sales pipeline, right? Because what I've seen people do is, I had 4 sales the first month and 6 sales the second month. Man, things are blowing up. I got to get an office. I'm going to get a second person. I'm going to get this. I'm going to get that. I'm going to spend. And then month 3, they have 1 sale, and month 4, they have none. And it turns out they just got lucky and they were really fishing in their own little pond for those first few clients, right? But they didn't really have a sales and marketing system in place. They didn't really understand what they were doing to generate leads. They weren't consistently generating new business. They got lucky. It seemed like they were busy. It seemed like they were going to be taking off, but they didn't really understand. So you want to be able to project not just expenses. Okay, if I bring on another person, it's going to cost me this much in salary, but you really want to be able to project revenue, and with confidence, right? If I do X, Y, and Z lead generation, I'm going to get 30 leads. I'm going to have 15 appointments. I'm going to close 5 new clients. That's worth X. If I do that 3 months in a row, then that'll pay for that next person, and that, right? So that the revenue side, when in the early days, being able to confidently project that revenue side is the key to making that decision, not the expenses, but really the revenue side, and knowing that you can consistently do that. And it might take longer than you thought, and you might feel like, I'm almost at the breaking point. Like, I don't know if I can take another client, but give it another month and just make sure that lead pipeline is really there. That sales pipeline is really, you're closing at the rate you thought, and then bring somebody in. But if it turns out, you're more of an up and down roller coaster kind of sales cycle, you don't want to start making a lot of plans when you're at the top of the roller coaster, and right after you've committed to the hiring and everything, a lease and all that, that's right, when the coaster goes down the big hill. So I think that is the key piece, in early days. And then, yes, the good news is, right, that's the hardest time. Going from 1 to 2, that's the hardest time. That's when you're most likely to be back on ramen and cup of noodle for a while until you get past it. But hire 3, hire 4, each one is incrementally easier. And now, where we're at, right? If I hire 5 people and lose 2 people for whatever reason, it doesn't even make a dent, right? It doesn't. Yes, I could dial in and see the numbers, but it doesn't make a dent in my lifestyle. I'm not worried about paying the rent anymore or anything. So you have to kind of just set yourself up to say, look, it's going to be tough sledding for the first 3, 4, 5, but once it gets, each one gets a little bit easier, you get to 10, you kind of go, whoo, 10, that's pretty good. I'm pretty sizable now. And then, right. 10 to 20, it's easier and easier. So that's just kind of the evolution of any sort of business, no matter what business you're in. But I think really the key is that understanding your revenue cycle, and especially even more if you're in a business where you're invoicing, right, and your net terms and you're getting paid out. That's really when it's tough. Like we have clients who are commercial HVAC, for example, right? They're working for general contractors. Great, I landed a job. It's $50K. They want me to start tomorrow, but I got to bring guys and I got to bring equipment. They're not going to make the first payment for 30 days. And it's construction. So that might really mean 60 or 90 days. So, man, right? This is going to be tough. So fortunately, your business, our business, I think, the cash comes a little quicker and sometimes even before you start delivering, which is a huge benefit to trying to project that stuff. But even still, you've got to know you can generate leads outside of your own little network of friends. You can close sales even outside of the people who are very warm referrals to you, and that you can do that consistently. Once you hit that point, now you're in great shape to be able to say, okay, I can start growing. I can project into adding expenses, knowing that I'll be able to bring that revenue in.
Yep. Agreed. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Great insight. Well, we talked a lot about delegation, which is awesome. Growing, which is awesome. I'm curious, as you've grown, right? There's a lot of people dynamics that come with that, and I'm thinking about how you navigate team dynamics and start promoting supervisors and things like that. So, any tips or advice on kind of teams or developing leaders, kind of above and beyond just the scale component we've already talked about?
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of tenets that I sort of try to follow. One is that I don't promote just based on time in the seat, right? Which is a common, right? This person's been here 4 years and this person just started a year ago. But the person who started a year ago has more leadership potential. They have more ability to, read people, delegate, get stuff done, be professional. The person who's been here 4 years, technically they're good, but they're kind of a clown when it comes to interpersonal relationships, right? So I let everybody know, you don't get promoted to a new position just because of seniority. You get promoted to a new position because you're qualified for it and you've earned it and you're able to fulfill it. So I think that's good in 2 ways. One, it tells people they're not just cruising, right? They're not just, I'm just putting in time and I'll eventually, you can still get raises, but you're not necessarily getting promoted to more responsibility or a new position. It also tells people who are relatively new, hey, I don't have to wait for this guy to go up so I can go up, or to go up and get fired and then I can finally have it. If I'm the best person for the job, they're going to give me the job. So I think that is a really helpful culture, and it's not something you see all the time. The other thing that I do, and from the top down, and kind of what we were talking about before, I always say it's my fault, right? If I have somebody who's a hire that just doesn't work out, they're cause client problems, they're not delivering work, the tendency is to go, oh, they're a bad employee. Well, who hired them, right? Who trained them? Who evaluated them? Who let them stay and gave them another chance, even though they probably shouldn't have had one? Well, that was me, right? So, and I try to, then have my managers think about things the same way. Take responsibility. Then the beauty of taking responsibility is now I can do something about it, right? If I screwed up, I can fix it. If I say, well, that wasn't my fault, now I have no agency in it, right? Now stuff just happens to me. Bad stuff happens to me. Oh, poor me. What, terrible luck I have, but I hope it goes better tomorrow. If I say it's my fault, then okay, what can we learn from that? Well, we didn't do enough training. We didn't do enough vetting. We didn't do a background check. We should have done that, or whatever it was. okay, well, from here on, from this one on, this is what we'll do differently. And we'll hopefully have improvement. And each time something happens that you don't think is optimal or don't like or didn't go well, okay, what could we have done differently to have changed it? What could I have done differently? What could you have done differently? If it was your hire, what could you have done differently? What can we learn from this? And then we're going to rehash it. We're not finger pointing, blame. Oh, you screwed up. Oh, I can't believe you did that. All right, that didn't work out. We fixed the problem. How do we make sure that doesn't happen again? And then move forward. And, tomorrow is like, who cares, right? It's today, and tomorrow, or yesterday rather, who cares, right? Today is today, and we'll do better, even better tomorrow, and just keep facing forward and moving forward. And I think that really, people appreciate that. And we really try to have a drama-free workplace, right? There's just no circles, no power plays, no, weird dynamics. Everybody's working in the best interest of the client. If you're doing that, then you'll never get in trouble here, right? You'll always be in the right. So just things like that, I think we try to instill as company culture. And I think it really has carried through. I think it is reflected in the referrals, the word of mouth, the great reviews we get. It all, people are happy in their job and they feel rewarded and recognized and appreciated. That's going to flow through to the clients, and the customers are going to see that, right? And if it's the opposite, if everybody's miserable and looking for their next job and hates their manager and hates their employee, the customers are going to notice that too. So it just seems like the way to do it to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting. Earlier, you talked about something. I'd love to dive a little deeper into it. It was around the importance of delivering high quality, right? So thinking about what is the value somebody's going to expect from, kind of this larger firm, right? Which is always was your goal from day one. So how do you go about ensuring high quality as you've scaled and grown your team?
Well, we have some pretty specific metrics around what we consider to be an acceptable deliverable. But the real secret is we talk to our clients all the time, right? Are we getting you what you need? Are you happy with this? Is there more you'd like to see? Are we giving you stuff you don't need or don't care about, right? And I want to hear from them. That's the gold standard, because we could have all the internal company meetings we want about quality, about deliverables, about improving. But if the customer's like, yeah, I don't care about any of that, then we just wasted a lot of time and a lot of sandwiches that we didn't need to spend trying to figure out how to improve. So just talking to the customer is really the gold standard. If they say, hey, you guys are amazing, you're giving me exactly what I want, the price is fair, the quality is great, the communication is fantastic, just keep doing what you're doing. Great. Message received. That is what we will focus on. But if they say anything different, great. Then we want that feedback. And that is really who matters, right? Because again, at the end of the day, if they're not happy, then the rest of us could all think we're doing an amazing job, but that's not really what matters. And I always say, marketing, the best marketing you can do is doing a great job, right? Because if you're not doing a great job, you can have a great lead gen and a great sales process. You bring people in the front door, but then 3 months later, they're out the back door. Because like, well, yeah, those guys are, sold me a great package, but the actual deliverable was crap. So, I'm going to go find something else. If you do a great job, even if you have no marketing and no sales and nothing else, and when you answer the phone, you're just like this dead voice. Yes, can I help you? What do you want? There'll still be people who want to buy from you because like, Joe told me you were amazing and I want some of that, right? And you're like, okay, well, I guess I can take your order. You can send me a credit card. But right, if you're also doing good job on lead gen and sales, cool, you'll do even better. But just by virtue of doing a good job and nothing else, you will have plenty of customers. On the flip side, do a poor job, and even with great sales and marketing, you'll find your cost of customer acquisition is through the roof because I've got to overcome all the bad reviews, all the bad word of mouth, all the people who've left, nasty comments and everything else, all the people talking about me in forums about how terrible I am. It's going to cost me thousands of dollars to even get a lead at that point. So, do a great job, and then that's job one. And then that in itself is 80% of your marketing effort. And then layer on top of that some best practices for marketing, and you should have a fantastic firm in no time.
Awesome. Well, I love it. I'm kind of curious, as you've grown, you've gone through a lot of different changes, right, in the economy and everything else that's gone on throughout the years that you've grown CapForge. Any advice on how to, stay flexible, how to navigate those challenges, how to stay current on different trends, just anything like that can help somebody kind of, spearhead their business in an effective direction despite what setbacks they come across?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just have to keep moving forward. If you find a hurdle, right, you go over it. If you can't go over it, you go around it. If you can't go around it, you go under it. If you can't go under it, you go through it, right? You just keep figuring out a way to continue to move forward. And yes, I mean, you want to be cognizant of the macro environment. Is the economy on an upswing? Is it on a downswing or interest rate? But I won't don't over focus on that, right? Don't someone's like,
Right.
oh, it's not a good time to start a business. It's always a great time. If you've got a great service to provide and you can do a fantastic job, this is the right time to start a business today. It doesn't matter, right? If it's a down economy and you can plow through that, then when times are good, you'll kill it, right? And if you start when it's really good, you'll build up a great base. And when there's a down economy, everyone else goes out of business, you clean up. So either way, right? It's a great time to start a business if you're going to do a great job. If you're going to do an job, then yeah, maybe don't start at all or rethink your plans, right? So I would say I just like competition, right? People, oh, AI is going to take over accounting and this and that, and oh, there's a firm in your space that just got a $200 million investment. Aren't you worried? No. One, there's so much opportunity. There's so many people who are underserved or getting bad service or whatever. I'm never going to run out of customers. I'm not worried about competition coming in, and a lot of times the competition isn't any better than who I'm already competing with, and we're beating them handily. So all right, so just one more person to beat out. Oh, okay, I'm not worried. So I think yes, you want to be aware of trends and things happening in your market, and if there's a new client base to serve or a new better way to serve them or new software you can bring in that'll help you with your efficiency and whatever, yeah, great, check it out. But that's like 10 minutes out of a 40-hour week that I spend thinking about that stuff. And everything else is just spent on focusing on how can we do an even better job than we're already doing with just the stuff that we do. And, I think if you just did that, you'll find success, no problem.
Awesome. Well, as we prepare to wrap up here, any final advice that you might have for a coach or a solopreneur that is, kind of seeing that bigger vision that you had of, hey, I don't want to just, do this by myself. I want to have a big firm. I want to have, a company that does this. Any advice for them and kind of how they might approach that vision and that scale?
I mean, what I would say is just aim really big, right? Because if you aim really big and you miss by a little bit, you're still pretty big, right? But if you aim small and you hit your target, great, but you're still small. So I would say don't be afraid to think big. And even more important, maybe, is do have a goal, do have a target, right? If it's just sort of like, I'm just trying to pay the bills, I'm just trying to land one more client because the rent's coming up, or I've got a mortgage payment or a car payment or whatever, you're just going to be in survival mode. And I think it's hard to kind of ever get past that. So go in, set a goal, set a big goal, set the incremental steps it's going to take you to get there, and then just start plugging away and then measure your success against that. How am I doing? What do I need to course correct? What's working? What's not? And keep going. And then the other thing is just start, right? I should have started years before I did. If I'd had, just kind of gotten over that, oh, what if it doesn't work? And fear and this and that. I could have done a great job, I think, had I started years earlier. I'm not, no regrets on the path that I've been on, but I did definitely hold myself back waiting for, oh, maybe it's not the right time, or maybe it would be better if I waited for this, or maybe I need to have more of that or whatever. Just jump in and start. You'll learn along the way. There's the journey will kick your butt 100 times. You'll learn from that and you'll keep going, right? Waiting for the perfect time for anything is a fool's errand. It just never is going to come. So aim big, measure your goals, measure your progress, and just get out there and do it.
Yeah. If I could add anything to that too, as Matt says that, I think that's as a coach, in the 5+ years that I've been doing this, that's the big disconnect that I find. David, I share every time I speak, I share all the statistics about the number of businesses that fail within 1 year, 5 years, right? It's 25, 50, 75, 1 year, 5 years, and 10 years. And, the resounding issue that constantly comes up, 82% are cash flow issues, right? However, my guess would be, yes, cash flow is a challenge, right? It's cash flow, it's acquisition to capital, or I'm sorry, access to capital, right? It's so for some reason they had a cash flow shortage. But my guess would be that and it kind of hits on what Matt just said. They didn't have a goal to go big. They had a goal to pay the bills. And that only lasts until I can't close the deal to pay the bills this month. And now I'm in the hole. And I can only be in the hole for about a month or two before I'm out, right? I can't make it work anymore. So the truth of the matter is, if you don't have a goal, and I'm not saying everybody's got to go big, but I think to the same point that Matt just made, if you don't have a goal to go somewhere, and beyond whatever that is, right? And if you're not stretching yourself and challenging yourself, and I've said this many times before, there's no such thing as neutral in life, right? There is no neutral gear in life. You're either moving forward or you're moving backward. And if you're not continuing stretching or challenging your business to grow, you're going to regress. And if you're not regressing, something, to Matt's point, you're going to get kicked in the butt 100 times, right? Something is going to come and kick you in the butt, and it's going to knock you back. And if you're not moving forward, that's going to be the thing that buries you. And I think that that's as much of the problem of why businesses fail as anything. Is it because they're not challenging themselves? They're not, how do I get the next 2 sales? How do I increase by 20% month over month? How do I do whatever that is? They're not looking at those things. They're just going through the motions and trying to make things work. And then what ends up happening is something does come and kick them in the butt, and then they can't rebound from it. Right. But if you're constantly challenging yourself and you're pushing yourself, you're thinking through, how do I get over, under, what was the analogy used, right? Over, under, around, whatever, right? I through whatever it is, if I'm constantly thinking about those things, when things do get tough, when I get stuck in a rut and I can't figure out, I've got that attitude. I'm going to push through, and I don't give up and I don't quit. I think more people quit because of what's the word I want to use? Not complacency, but I think that they quit on themselves more so than the business fails. I think that they get stuck, they get nervous, they get scared, and then they just quit on themselves because they don't have the discipline to push through. And I think that that's why more small businesses fail. And that's why I'm such a big proponent of having a coach, because sometimes you just need somebody to challenge you and push you through that difficult time and say, hey, you know what? I know it sucks right now, but this is just something you have to muster, right? It's just like physical fitness, right? You don't have a body of a Greek god by never going to the gym, right? It's like you go to the gym on a regular basis, you eat a certain way, right? It comes with discipline and structure and things that you may not always want to do. And when you do those things, that's when things work out better for you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well,
Matt, just some amazing and practical insights. I appreciate all of that. Even some bonus nuggets I wasn't expecting in there. So thanks for sharing all of that.
If there's one thing I want to bring, it's bonus nuggets. I mean, that's really what I'm known for.
I love it. Anything else that you want to share about CapForge before we wrap up today?
No, I mean, I think, hopefully you gave a bit of an overview of the kind of things that we do. If anybody's interested, you can check out the website. That's the best place to find out more about us. But there's nothing more to add. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Our pleasure. And the website, CapForge.com. We'll put the link in the show notes as well. Definitely check it out. Eric, any big announcements, any updates, anything new at My Biz Coaches that you want to share before we wrap up today?
No, I just got back from vacation, so I'm not ready to announce it just yet. But as you know, we have something really big on the horizon. What I will say is
another week. I got it.
What I will say is, partnerships with companies like CapForge and working with somebody like Matt is going to be developing these types of relationships with these types of companies is really going to be important as we move forward as an organization. A big focus on helping companies get access to capital, understanding what business credit needs, how to get access to business credit, how to establish business credit is a big focus, as you know, our new partnership. And so as some of these things start to come together, our focus on growing and helping companies grow and scale, and more specifically, literally from startup to exit, right? where can we help you throughout that process from startup to exit? Where are you struggling, and how can we help fill that gap? And I know that we need to continue to help business owners find that opportunity to kind of bridge those gaps where they come up, as we mentioned earlier. So it's an important component for us, and I'm excited about some of the things we're putting together. So I'll be really excited to make those announcements next week.
Awesome. Well, Eric, appreciate it. If you don't want to miss the announcement, make sure you subscribe. And of course, be sure to follow Eric on LinkedIn. And Matt, again, just appreciate having you on today's episode. And be sure to check out CapForge.com to learn more. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.